promised you a couple weeks ago, I'm doing an episode today about the Leviathan storyline, because there's a lot to look at in there. I want you to meet Comet. This is one of our new little girls here, and she is a precocious and precious little lady, aren't you? I think she just wanted to say hi to you all, so howdy from Comet, right? I'll put you down so I can get started. Alright, got that taken care of. Now that you have met Comet, let's get into the Archaeology of Dark Shadows, the Leviathan storyline. Many fans disliked the Leviathan storyline, and it did cause quite a decline in ratings for Dark Shadows. I was about 14 years old when the storyline aired, and I actually liked it. I found it very mysterious and enigmatic. But my one disappointment was that we never got to see Jeb Hawks in his true Leviathan form. Now, it's easy to extrapolate that his form would have been that of the Naga, the multi-headed serpent, on the ancient altar and many other places within this particular storyline. But the storyline centers around the Leviathan people and the Naga, and they're planning to re-enter this world, this realm of existence, to set up their culture, their society. And so that's kind of what was going on. Now, where did the Leviathan people originate, and where were they and their culture for untold millennia before they manifested in the woods around Collinwood, the ancient, or not the ancient, but the stately home of the Collins family on the estate there. So if we look here in the real world, the Naga were important entities in many Asian cultures, particularly in India and surrounding areas. And I would make the assumption that the Naga worshipping Leviathans probably originated in those areas, but way in the past, the primordial past. The Naga are divine, semi-divine, or semi-divine race of half-humans and half-serpent that lived in Patala, the netherworld. In some ancient cultures, the netherworld exists on what we might call a different spiritual plane. I believe this would be the case on Dark Shadows. Consider, if you will, the Naga altar on Dark Shadows. It just manifested itself from seemingly nowhere, from the ether. While Star Trek has shown us in the realm of fiction that transporting matter can be done on a large scale, that is not what happened here. And we are experimenting with that now in our reality too. I believe its origins were from that spiritual netherworld where the Naga lived in their reality. Well, in reality, I should say, in our reality, that's where they lived, or the mythology of our reality, people of the Asian countries. Remember also, the construction of the altar is really amazing to me. Obviously extremely old. The stonework resembles work from both South America and India, where the ancient temples and structures are so intricate. The temples in South America are intricate, and a lot of them do use serpent symbols, but the temples in India are almost breathtakingly, stunningly intricate in detail. So it just goes to point more to where their point of origin may have been the people who became the Leviathan people. So there are several more artifacts of the Leviathan people of Dark Shadows, and they are very ancient and very important to the cause that these people were trying to put forth, and that cause was to bring their civilization back to our world, presumably to take it over. And they couldn't have done any worse than the people who are in control today, could they? But the first, anyways, is the Leviathan box. It is an ornately carved wooden box with a Naga symbol in the center, I believe, in a disc on the lid. And its purpose was of the highest order to the Leviathans. Barnabas Collins, returning from 1796, finds his voyage through time intercepted by the Leviathans, again suggesting that they exist on a different plane or in a different dimension, if you will. When Barnabas stepped out of the altar, back into 1969, he had the Leviathan box with us, and its sole purpose seemed to be to carry the Naga life force into our physical world, where it would survive until it had a body to inhabit. Dr. Julia Hoffman and others could hear heavy breathing coming from inside the box, which later you could hear coming from the isolated room at the Todd's Antique Shop in Collinsport, where it dwelled for a while in the story. So the box possessed an amazing destructive power too, as we learned when the altar was destroyed at the end of the storyline. Then there was the book, a very ancient-looking tome indeed, an instruction book of sorts, a spiritual guide, maybe a sort of Bible if you wanted to make that kind of a comparison. The knowledge obviously given from the Naga to the first Leviathan people, and I believe it was given in unwritten form as how would a book from a spiritual plane take on attributes of the physical or material world. The Leviathans then wrote it down, and the Naga symbol is found on it and in the book. There is a page that we can see on the show in the book where there's a colorful illustration on one side of the Naga, and you can see on the other page writing, but you can't make it clearly enough to see if it is an actual language in our reality, or if it's something the writing staff of Dark Shadows concocted, for the Naga and Leviathans, like the writers on Star Trek did for the Klingons. They made a whole different alphabet and a whole different system for the Klingon people in that show. There was also a necklace showing the Naga, though its role in the whole scheme of things really seems somewhat underdeveloped to me. It was worn by Meg and Todd, who she and Philip, as I just said, owned an antique shop in Collinsport. They became the custodians of the Naga life force, and it entered into a baby that just kind of mysteriously came about, and that baby grew rapidly into a 12-year-old boy, and then into Jeb Hawks, the adult version, who was probably in his early 20s, and he became the leader of the Leviathans and took that role over from Barnabas, who had acted as leader until Jeb was ready to assume that role. Then, lastly, and this begs the question, was this an original plotline by the Dark Shadows writing team? That always seemed unlikely to me because they were always plagiarizing so many other different sources. They plagiarized everything they possibly could, and in this, I hadn't been exposed to anything like the Leviathan Naga story or the parallel time one, which followed. As the show plagiarized so many classics, it seemed that they were running out of material. But the truth is, the story's roots likely came from H.P. Lovecraft influence and his work known as the Cthulhu mythos. Now, Rick Lay, in a Lovecraft e-zine or fanzine, wrote the following, which I thought was really showed the connection. He wrote, yeah, he did. Lovecraft had fashioned an artificial mythology in which beings from other planets and dimensions had visited Earth in primordial times, and these beings became known as the Great Old Ones. Prominent among them was Yog-Sothoth, and on Dark Shadows there appeared an alien race called the Leviathans, dressed in brown robes like monks. Members of the race took the form of humanoids with green-tinted skin. However, this was not their true form, end quote. And he's right, it wasn't their true form. The show did indicate they were aliens, like he had suggested here. If they were aliens, I don't know, that opens up a whole new area of study, I guess. But as I stated, their true form would have been that of the Naga, which we were exposed to so often. There was one scene which contradicts this, seemingly. One scene showed them as blobs of very intense light. And to me that, we went through this whole storyline with the Naga being the physical representation, and all of a sudden in one episode they changed it to these beings of bright light, and it was never explained. It was never, that was very odd to me that they would do that. So, I thought that maybe this was how the Leviathan people manifested before they found the right body to occupy, but such as I don't think is the case, because there had to be a special unused body, that baby that Jeb Hawks, or the one that would become Jeb Hawks, inhabited. So in the world of Dark Shadows, the Naga and Leviathan had one enemy who could kill them, and that was a werewolf. And wouldn't you just know it, there happened to be a werewolf on call at Collinwood, or in Collinsport. Chris Jennings, who was a werewolf and related to the Collins family, who indeed did do battle with Jeb Hawks, so Jeb Hawks was not killed in that battle. Jeb Hawks met his ultimate demise by an all-consuming demon shadow that seemed to consume him. So that always struck me as rather strange, because I never considered the werewolf an ancient sort of creature, though I suppose he could have been. But in fiction, anything is possible, and surely it is true that anything is possible. At Collinwood, from an archaeological standpoint, we get to look at a very ancient altar and gate or passageway. We get to look at the Leviathan box, intricately carved, looking very, very Indian. I mean, Asian Indian, which gives a clue to the origin of the Leviathans themselves. We get to look at the necklace that Megan Todd wore and the book. So all interesting items. But that's what I've got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you did, let me know. And if you did, I'll do another episode on something else from Dark Shadows. So thanks for joining in. Love you all. Appreciate you all a whole lot. And I appreciate your prayerful support that many of you have been giving to me. Believe me, it does help. Bless you all. See you very, very soon.